you. We'll call to order the monthly meeting of the Traverse Bay Area Intermediate School District Board of Education. Superintendent Siglerick, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. McKellar.
Yes.
Brown. Berge.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Tank.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Fisher.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
And I support. There's a motion to support. Is there discussion? Dr. Siglerick, could you call the roll tonight, please, for that?
McKellar.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Berge.
Yes.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Tank. Tank.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
And Fisher.
Yes, here. The next item is to welcome our visitors and welcome any of you that might be out there. It's also the time for public comment, which tonight would include public comment on extended COVID-19 learning plan. So, Renee, do we have anyone waiting?
Good evening. No, we don't. But if there is somebody that's online right now and would like to make public comment, please feel free to unmute and do so.
I think I've waited an appropriate length of time, so it would appear that we can move on to Roman numeral 2. It's Career Tech Center Month. Pat, do you want to introduce Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fisher. I'd like to take just a moment to recognize the staff over at the Career Tech Center since it is CTE month, and it has been a challenging year to say the least, but they continue to amaze amaze the students. And whether it's a virtual visit that we put together for the first time today and have never done, and to try to visit the center virtually, or whether it's just to engage students throughout a semester of on again, off again, in person, out of person, I just want to give a huge shout out to the staff. They have done a tremendous job, and we could be highlighting many programs today. I selected Brian Matchett in agri-science and Gabby Waterman is the parapro that works with that program, because Brian came to us, fortunately for TBA and our students, a couple of years ago. He worked on the fringes of our program through working at MSU Extension and Northwestern Michigan College. And he was just a guy that we always felt if we could get into our program, he would take it to the next level. And with the addition of Gabby Waterman, this year as a parapro, that has happened. Enrollments are busting at the seam and all kinds of great things happening in that program. And so I don't want to talk any longer. I want to introduce Brian and give him the opportunity to share the great things that are going on in his program at the Career Tech Center. Take it away, Brian.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. Appreciate the kind introduction. And just to echo what Pat already shared, Gabby Waterman is a new addition to our program, but is doing a wonderful job as a paraprofessional. And it's really neat to see young individuals who are energetic and excited about education in the agricultural industry. And that's really what Gabby brings to the table for us every day. So awesome asset to our program. So yeah, as Pat said, I wanted to just take a few minutes and share some updates on our program, a little bit looking back at how we've navigated through some of the virtual learning experience with COVID, But one thing that I want to reiterate that Pat shared, I really truly feel fortunate and honored to be the agri-science instructor here at the Career Tech Center. It's a job that I love doing day in and day out. And as Pat mentioned, having an opportunity to work for Michigan State University and the Institute of Ag Technology and kind of be on the other end of some of our education pipeline, I was extremely excited to get back into the high school classroom. I had taught 10 years previous at Alcona Community Schools, which is on the northeast side of the state. And some of you may be able to relate different stages of professional careers and finding out what it is that you're truly meant to do and what energizes you every day. And so I'm excited that I get to do that here at the Career Tech Center every day. So that's partly a thank you to all of you for supporting what we do at the Career Tech Center and especially in our program. So taking a step back, I wanted to share some successes of what has taken place over the last year. It's hard to believe that we're talking about this in the scope of a year now, but one of the moves that we made last spring in our agri-science program, recognizing that we were going to be virtual, I really had a goal for myself of continuing to engage students in both the agricultural industry, but giving them as close to a hands-on experience as we could provide through our learning in agri-science education. And so one of the things that we pivoted and did fairly quickly last March was to develop and put together some industry tours virtually for our students. And so, the opportunity to collaborate with folks in the agricultural industry really speaks volumes to the support that's out there for our program. And so one example, we spent a day literally riding in a tractor with one of my students on an iPad, sharing a live video feed as they're using a GPS auto steer tractor and planting potatoes out at El Maple Farm in Kalkaska. Another opportunity was shearing sheep at a commercial sheep farm. Some may know that my family operates a fairly large sheep farm in Charlevoix County. My cousins and uncle lamb about 2,000 ewes every year. So it's one of the largest sheep operations in Michigan. So I had a chance to spend a day there videotaping and putting together a video of the process of commercial sheep shearing. And our students got a chance to interact with that video, and it was as close to being there on the farm as we could get. Certainly one of the challenges that we ran into was the work students had done leading up to our first experience with virtual learning last spring. And most notably, that involved about 400 hanging baskets that were planted by students, that were started, that were just coming to kind of their maturity in the greenhouse. And then we had to tell them they weren't able to be here to help take care of those baskets. So we kind of met them in the middle with some greenhouse tours and them seeing each week progress of their baskets. And then, a real rewarding part of that experience was having the conversation with students on, so how do we work within this? How do we make the best out of not an ideal situation? And so it was fun through our FFA chapter operations for students to run a business meeting and make a decision on what do we do with this crop of hanging baskets, and to see them recognize the value of donating those to Munson Healthcare. We donated over 200 hanging baskets for healthcare professionals. And I think that was a prime example of involving our students in a real world decision and making a benefit or making an impact in their community. We also had students that helped with veterinary science. So we couldn't practice and learn veterinary science skills in the classroom together. But one of our second year students that was working at a vet clinic in Mansalona stepped up and said, Mr. Matchett, I think I can still teach some of our classmates some of the veterinary skills that I'm learning. And she did a great job of putting together a demonstration for our students during virtual learning. And then the last one is a really nice partnership that we have with the Northwest Michigan Horticulture Research Center and Dr. Nikki Rothwell, who directs that center. She was kind enough to take 2 hours of her time and walk us through all of the tree fruit research projects that were planned to take place in the summer of 2020 and expose our students on that level. So that's just a quick kind of, we hear a lot of the challenges and struggles, I think, with virtual learning, but there's also a lot of really neat successes out there that are fun to share as well. So I'm going to jump ahead and not focus on virtual learning anymore, but try to paint a little bit of a picture for you on what kind of a year in the life of agri-science looks like. So with some pictures and kind of explaining a few of the projects. One of the main projects that we do right away in the fall is a broiler project. We raise 100 broiler chickens in a small barn facility that we've been fortunate to use for our resources here on the animal science side of our curriculum. We raise 100 broiler chickens, and believe it or not, in 5 weeks, the chickens start as day-old birds in the top picture, and they end up as at about 6.5 to 7 pound broilers that are really modeling what's happening in commercial poultry production. Our students this year even had a chance to be a part of the processing of those birds. We didn't process all of our birds. We did a processing demonstration day, and a really neat collaboration was working with Film and New Media program, where they came down and used our processing demonstration as an opportunity to capture the footage on film. And I had requested of Mr. Mills that a number of agri-science teachers across the state said, boy, if we could teach our students about poultry processing through some video footage, wouldn't that be a great opportunity? So this is a way that we collaborated with another program to make that happen. And then our students also help with marketing and sales of those birds. So I think it's extremely important that when we're talking about production of agricultural commodities, that we take as many projects start to finish as we can, so students see that full life cycle of a project, like raising and selling broiler chickens. And then the last one is the connection with FFA, and you'll hopefully get an idea throughout this presentation of how FFA is a very integral part of everything that we do in our agri-science program. So in this case, students select the 5 best birds out of their pen of 25 that they raise, and we enter them in a contest against 92 other teams of FFA members competing in the same project in the same exact time frame with the same birds coming from the same hatchery. You get the idea. And we're really excited to report that after the birds were evaluated and judged by faculty at the Animal Science Department at MSU, as well as a very complete written report, including rate of gain, feed conversion ratios, all of the science behind growing broiler chickens, our teams placed all in the top 11, so 4 entries, and we placed in the top 11 out of 92 teams. So we were really excited about the success of that broiler project. Jumping over to the plant science side, so we raise a crop of poinsettias every fall. This year we grew 200 poinsettias, and you can see the difference in the growth of those plants throughout the project from start to finish in the picture above. But a great introductory unit that we use to teach plant physiology, growth management, and again, the marketing and sales of a commodity like that as well. And then the other project that our students are doing as we speak is called square foot gardening. So you can see the tote bin sitting on the greenhouse table. Each student's given the same size tote bin with the same amount of soil. And then the students each make the selection of vegetable produce that they're going to grow in their square foot garden tub. And we make it a competition so that the students are both learning about vegetable production, but they're also competing against their classmates to see who can grow the most poundage of food in a set amount of time, which it's fun to see how the competition raises the level of interest and learning involved in a project like that. So the next one I want to highlight is our sheep project. So sheep production, we were excited last year to be able to purchase 2 ewes. These ewes, as you might have guessed, came from the Matchett Sheep Farm. But these are 2 bred ewes. They're a breed called Polypay, and they lambed in our small barn facility for the first time in March of 2020, just last year. So we had 4 lambs that were grown and raised. The students take care of all the husbandry, the management. We work through how to administer vaccinations, when the right timing is, and teach all the science behind sheep production. And certainly there's a lot of excitement and interest about when those lambs are going to be born. And so our ewes were bred again this fall, and they're scheduled to lamb either in the 1st or 2nd week of March. So hopefully we'll be in a situation where more people will have a chance to come to the Career Tech Center and have a chance to see and to learn about sheep production through the lambs that we'll be raising in the barn. The last one I want to share on the curriculum side is a project that we require every student to do in the agri-science program. It's called a supervised agricultural experience. It has a lot of similarities to a work-based experience, but we require every student outside of their classroom time here at Career Tech Center to identify a project that meets their career interests. Because as many of you know, there are lots of career opportunities related to agriculture and natural resources. So an SAE project is a way for a student to find their own specialization, their own niche, if you will, within our agri-science program. So this is an example of some of the reporting that our students do at the end of the project. So you can kind of get an idea of the amount of record keeping involved, the reflection that students provide, both on the skills that they set out to learn in their SAE project, and on the other end of it, what are some of the results and outcomes that they gained from that project. And I constantly impress upon our students the value of a document like this, where they can share with an employer, with a scholarship committee, what it is that they've done and completed throughout our project. So record keeping is a big focus and something that we constantly hear from the agriculture industry. We need students that can keep good records to be successful in the industry. So a little bit more on our FFA organization, and I'm glad the question came up earlier about FFA and how that's integrated into our program. From day one, when students step into the program at Career Tech Center, they are FFA members of the Traverse Bay Area Intermediate School District FFA chapter. They're also members of the Michigan FFA Association and the National FFA Association. For those that are not familiar, there are over 700,000 FFA members in the United States. It's now the largest youth leadership organization in the country. And the whole focus is to provide premier leadership, personal growth, and career success for students studying agricultural education. So some of the highlights over the last year were a very well organized and put on virtual National FFA Convention. This is the first time since 1928 that a group of FFA members did not assemble for a national convention in person. But we were excited that 217,000 FFA members participated in sessions very similar to this, with awesome keynote speakers, workshops for students to learn more about leadership and about setting goals for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. So the second item is we elect officers within our FFA chapter every year. So we have an AM officer team and a PM. And I really put those students in charge of providing leadership for their other classmates in the form of running official business meetings, planning out agendas for those meetings, and making decisions as a chapter on how they're going to go forward. And that's, I think, some of that real quality hands-on learning skills around leadership that our students leave the program with. Next week, we actually start our leadership contest. So our students are all doing a prepared public speaking contest. We're doing those virtually this year. So it's interesting to be practicing public speaking and how do you effectively do that in a Zoom meeting as opposed to doing that in a room with a group of other people. And then the last one I'll share is what we call the Michigan FFA state degree. Our students are eligible to earn the Michigan FFA state degree. During their 2 years at the Career Tech Center, they have to complete 25 hours of community service. They have to have earned over $2,000 in their SAE project or invested a certain number of hours. It's about 320 hours during the 2 years. And then lastly, they have to participate in at least 5 FFA activities. If they complete those things during the 2-year cycle, they can earn what's called the Michigan FFA state degree. And that makes them eligible for 6 credits towards Michigan State University, which is essentially a $3,000 scholarship towards Michigan State University. To my knowledge, our agri-science program, or Michigan's agri-science programs, are the only CTE programs that Michigan State has a direct credit articulation with, so that our students can take advantage of those if they choose to go on to Michigan State. And I will point out their general ed credits. So if a student decides, man, I had a great experience in agri-science, but that is not the career path for me, those credits still follow them into any degree program at Michigan State. And I'm excited to report that we in 2019 had 2 students that earned that state degree. Last year we had 4, and the students just completed applications this year, and we'll have 5 students earning that degree this year. So we're seeing a nice return on students really stepping up to the plate to complete those credentials and have those 6 credits when they're done. And here's my last slide, because I feel like I'm talking a little bit too long, hopefully not tonight. But one of our emphasis is going to be in the next year and years forward is more of an emphasis on co-op experiences for students. This has really been a challenging nut to crack in the agricultural sector for a lot of different reasons. One of the big ones is the growing season in relation to our school year. And so, but we put a lot of emphasis, both Ms. Waterman, our paraprofessional, and myself, on making a concentrated effort this year to have the conversations with employers around how can we still create these experiences for students? What do employers need from us, and how can we best prepare our students? And we're excited that we now have 20 employers that have stepped up and said, we understand what you're looking at for a co-op experience for students, and we're willing to work with those students and create those real excellent work opportunities for them. And so we're excited that this is going to be a major focus for our second years and the next couple of years coming forward. So hopefully we'll see a lot more students out there in the work environment as well. So with that, that's the end of what I have to share, and I am more than happy to answer any questions you have, and hopefully this was all beneficial to the group.
Brian, do you see?
Oh, go ahead.
Do you see any opportunities to cross over the culinary students with some of the activities you're taking part in, like the poultry and whatnot?
Absolutely, Jim, and some of that's already happening. A couple quick things I'll share off the top of my head. We raised meat rabbits every year. I didn't mention that in here, but we raise rabbits for meat production. And the year before last, at the end of that project, we took 6 of our rabbits down to culinary. The chef Darrell went through with our agri-science students how to prep and prepare those rabbits, and we brought those back down, and the students got to taste the rabbits afterwards because not a lot of students had rabbit previously. We've done a similar thing with our poultry, and the other really nice connection with culinary is our greenhouse operations, kind of focusing some of the conversation with culinary and what their needs are. So on a normal day, when normal meaning not during our virtual hybrid learning, I would say that chef is down here probably 2 to 3 days a week, either collecting flowers for the salad bar or letting us know that the following week he's going to need a certain amount of herbs, and so we're often cutting and preparing those for him. I do think there's some expansion opportunities in that area. I would love to see the salad bar in the cafe be all produce that is grown here in our greenhouse. And so we've had some of those conversations and what's allowable with food safety and everything else. But great suggestion. I think there's more that could come in the future.
Did you? One last question. Did you have a student named Lenny who took care of the rabbits?
We did not have a student named Lenny. No. Nope.
Anyone else?
Liz, you have a question? I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
So how do you balance students who are vegetarians or vegans in this program? I mean, my daughter's a vegan, and I think that she'd be put off by elements of the program, but she'd be very excited by other elements. So how does that work?
That's a great question, Jason. I think on the 20,000 foot view, what I would share and what my overarching goal for every student in this program is that they understand better when they leave this program than when they came in, where their food comes from and how is food processed and handled. And so for the student and on the other side of that scale, I have several students who live to hunt and fish and trap and you name it. And my goal is that those students who maybe have never grown a vegetable or an herb before in their life, they leave this program going, oh my gosh, I never knew that's how you did that. And wow, I could do that myself. And for maybe a student who is a vegan or a vegetarian, one of my goals is that certainly never to push someone towards something that is against their principles or something they're uncomfortable with. But I do think studying in an agricultural program, it's important that if they choose to consume or not, they still understand how that food is grown and produced. Because I think we have a big disconnect in our society right now between how food is actually grown and what we've seen on YouTube and other places on how we think it's grown. So one of my goals is to teach proper agricultural practices that every student in this program leaves with a better appreciation of how food is produced, whether that's an animal protein or whether that's a plant protein. And the last thing I'd say with that is I try to make sure every communication I have with potential students coming into the program that I'm clear with what this program is structured to do and what projects and activities they'll be involved with. And processing chickens as an example, we need students doing the not so glamorous end of the processing, but we also need students putting a sticker label on a bag. And so there's a spot in the process for everyone depending on their comfort level.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? I've got two questions. One, what was the veterinary presentation? And two, where do you keep, where will the lambs lamb, or where will the sheep's lamb?
Okay, so the veterinary presentation was twofold. You're speaking of the student who demonstrated for her classmates?
Yes, up in Mansalona, I think you said, yeah.
Yep. So the first one she did was a fecal float. So she showed how to take a fecal sample and do a fecal float, and she demonstrated how to prep it for a microscope, but obviously that was challenging to do over a virtual setting. And the second thing she did is went through different types of injections. So she talked about intramuscular injections versus subcutaneous injections. And she actually didn't have an animal she was demonstrating on, but she had an orange and a sock, and she actually showed and demonstrated how to give different injections. And so that's a contest that typically we will do through FFA as well. It's our spring skills contest where students have to demonstrate those skills. So her goal was to teach students what they were missing by not being able to go to the contest in the spring. The second question, Mr. Fisher, is the small garage that we have right behind the greenhouse, which is part maintenance and part barn. We were fortunate to work with Bob Gross, and Bob said, hey, we can divide this barn. It's not a large facility. It's a 12 by 24 barn facility. And quite frankly, it's something that we had to really thoughtfully design around. Okay, how are we going to raise 100 broiler chickens in the fall and then completely clean and sanitize, ensure that we're not transmitting disease problems from chickens over to sheep? And we tear it down and we reset that barn up for the sheep. So we just finished building an outdoor runway pasture for the ewes, but they lamb right inside the barn. There's plenty of space for students to work around. We were just trimming hooves last week, and there was room for me to do the hoof trimming and students to stand and watch and participate as well. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Oh, great job.
Yeah, it was. Thanks, Brian. It was really informative. It's quite a program you've got going. So thanks a lot. Anyone else? Thanks very much. Jim, did you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand go up. Okay. I think, Brian, thanks again so much, and really enjoyed that. Item B, Dr. Seglerek.
Yeah, it's a great privilege and honor to take a little time to recognize some pretty Herculean efforts by community members and community leaders. We've been very, very fortunate to have a great partnership with our local school leaders within our 5-county region and our local health department leaders. And tonight, I'd like to just take a moment to pause and recognize the extraordinary efforts that our health department and our medical community, as well as our county administrator, all coming together with our school leaders in ensuring a safe return to school. March 13th hit, and our county administrator, Nate Alger, had the first JOC meeting, and I've been updating the board that we've been meeting at a period of time. We actually met every single day without stop. I think it was for about 75 or 80 days, and then went to every week. But similarly, starting on August 18th, we met every single week with all of our school leaders within our 5-county region, as well as our medical community, our health department, local physicians were represented. Munson took a leadership role and participated in those meetings. And so this unprecedented level of collaboration and cooperation really allowed us to be leaders in this region, to be able to safely open schools. And I just can't thank them enough. This is in a situation where they're in the middle of a pandemic and have numerous different calls and are pulled in so many different directions. And if it wasn't for their guidance and direction, we would not be in the place that we are today. So I would like to just formally present virtually a certificate of appreciation that will be signed by President Fisher and myself. And obviously we'll be mailing this to each of the following. From Kalkaska County District Health Department number 10, Health Officer Kevin Hughes, and Medical Director Dr. Jennifer Morris. In Antrim County, which is covered by Northwest Health Department, we have Benzie-Leelanau counties covered by Benzie-Leelanau Health Department. And so again, a huge shout out and thank you to Health Officer Lisa Peacock, who I believe is on the call, and Medical Director Dr. Josh Meyerson. Our Grand Traverse Health Department, we're very fortunate to have Wendy Hirschenberger, the Health Officer, Medical Officer, Dr. Michael Collins, Program Supervisor and School Liaison, Andrew Waite, Director of Public Health Emergency Preparedness, Michael Leahy, who was instrumental, by the way, in the establishment of the vaccination clinic that took place this weekend. And to see the level of detail necessary was quite impressive. Grand Traverse County Administrator Nate Alger, who's definitely taken a leadership role in our community's response. Munson Healthcare stepped up in a huge way, not just with our weekly meetings, but also in the vaccination of our school staff. So I'd like to publicly recognize and thank President and CEO Ed Ness, as well as the Chief Medical Officer for Munson, Dr. Christine Nefsey. And then we have had pediatricians that have joined our weekly calls because they wanted to ensure that the message was a unified message. And so Dr. Stephanie Galdis and Dr. James Robertson have been counseling and providing guidance to our local school leaders all through this pandemic. So on behalf, I don't want to speak for the board, but on behalf of the board and all of our school leaders, we just so appreciate the collaboration. And I don't know if anyone of the individuals that were recognizing would like to say anything. You're not obligated to, but definitely want to recognize it.
Hi, Nick. This is Wendy from Grand Traverse County Health Department. And I just wanted to say thank you for that recognition on behalf of all the staff at the health department. We have over 100 staff involved in the clinics. We have the Michigan National Guard, who has been very offering lots of clinic support at the Haggerty Center in partnership with NMC. And also lots of volunteers from the United Way who are incorporated into the clinics. And so it truly is the work of many. And I just wanted to say thank you. We appreciate it. We in the partnership with Munson for the 2-day clinics that were simultaneously held last weekend. Between the 2 days and the 2 sites, there were over 2,400 educators and childcare providers who were vaccinated over the course of that weekend. And that was a really great thing to see. And we were honored to be able to do that for our teachers and our schools.
Nick, I just would like to chime in with what Wendy said. This is Lisa Peacock, and I really just want to say thank you to all of our school leadership. I've never been so proud. You know, as a health department administrator, as a community member, as a former employee of TBAISD, and as a member of the Governor's Return to School Advisory Council, I have just been so proud to work with our school leadership in Northern Michigan. And I want you all to know how proud you should all be of the superintendents and the school staff across Northern Michigan. They are truly held up as shining stars across the state and keeping kids in school in person. You know, together through all these months, we've navigated risks, we've pivoted, we've changed, we've learned a lot about each other and each other's roles. And I think our communities are stronger for that effort. And I am forever grateful for the partnership. And thank you so much for this honor. It really means a lot.
And if I may, I would like to thank you, Dr. Sigler, for the kind words, and thank you, board. But I would also like to thank you for your wisdom and having Dr. Sigler involved with our Joint Operations Committee. He has been a sound and steady mind throughout this process and a great partner to us, and somebody that is his input is always listened to and considered and is always valuable. So if not for community members like Dr. Sigler, I call you Nick, I'm sorry, Dr. Sigler and the other members of the committee, I believe that this community would not have managed this pandemic as well as we did. So thank you very much.
Hi, this is Bonnie Krushka. I'm Vice President of Munson Healthcare and Chief Nursing Officer of Ambulatory Services. And although Dr. Nefsi couldn't be here this evening, I am filling in for her and just want to say thank you to this entire team, because without you, our students wouldn't be going back to school and learning and thriving in an on-site environment. So we were very happy to be able to help vaccinate those teachers. Believe it or not, we had a really good time over those 2 days, cheering them on with our pom-poms. And Munson Healthcare loves our teachers, loves our educators and school staff. So it was just a pleasure to be part of that. And I know Dr. Nefsi really enjoyed her time with this team and working together to take care of our students and work collaboratively with the health department. So thank you.
Anyone else?
So I'd just like to make a comment that I think when I think about the effort that it took to do this, I come up with an image, and it sounds silly, but it's a duck, right? You see that smooth, but you know those legs are just up paddling underneath. You guys have pulled this off flawlessly, and I'm very proud. And I have family that are teachers as well, and I'm involved in the business community, and I just think this has been an incredible across the board effort. And thank you for all of your time. I've been on a lot of those meetings myself. I know it's been hours of dedication. So thank you.
The challenges that all of you faced over the last 11 months are just amazing, and the effort and the coordination, the long hours, I'm happy to sign a certificate, but it's just a small token. My respect for people in the public sector has gone up a millionfold. So thank you so much for your hard work. If everyone knew how hard you all worked, it'd be maybe a little different world. But thanks again. Dr. Sigler, anything further, sir?
I think you said it really well. Just a lot of gratitude. And, you talk about hours. I'm looking at Andrew and the number of phone calls that he's had. And whenever Andrew calls, that we probably have some contact tracing to do, or, the late phone calls, with Wendy or Lisa or Nate or Dr. Meyerson. There's a true dedication to our students here. And I'm just very grateful. So thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thanks for coming to the meeting as well, and it's good to hear from all of you. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to Roman numeral 3 action items. It's the consent grouping. I need a motion to approve the consent grouping as presented, please.
I'd make that motion, Joe.
I'll support.
Thank you, Jim. There's a motion and support. Is there discussion? Dr. Sigler, if you would, sir.
McKellar?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Berge?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Tank?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
And Fisher?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, recommendation family liaison services contract with Munson Healthcare. Matt, go ahead, please.
Good evening, everybody. Just asking for your approval tonight for a service contract with Munson. This is in support of the family liaison service role, which is actually tied directly to the grant-funded Strong Beginnings program that was approved previously, which serves some of our youngest learners beginning at age 3 in Benzie, Mansalona, and in Munson in partnership at NMC. So groups are going to be pooling resources to support one full-time position, which is what this request is for. And the ISD would then be responsible for supervising and supporting that new hire. So asking for your approval for that position.
I'll
Is
make
there a
the
motion? Thank you, Rachel.
Support.
Support.
Thank you, Jim. We have a motion and a support. Discussion. Go ahead, Dr. Seglarek, if you would.
McKellar,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Berge,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Tank,
Yes.
Shear,
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item C, rebranding, Dr. Seglarek.
It is an honor and privilege to bring to you tonight a recommendation presented by Emily Mitchell, Nielsen Design Group, around our rebranding. It's an exciting time, and I don't want to steal any of Emily's thunder, so I'll let her take over the screen.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Meaningful meeting. I have 10 minutes and 13 screens to share with you a recommended solution, design solution for your new brand identity. You have seen prior presentations for bearings, and I want you to know I have notes here that I'll be referring to occasionally. Bearings. We're at we've reached the end of the design phase. We formally enter implementation next month. Tonight is a formal approval. The approval is yours. But my responsibility today is to bring you one strong solution and to explain and to prove with 13 screens that it will work. It's our job to do that. And it is our way to show you one strong solution. Let me share screen if I may. I think I'm probably set up to do that, maybe not yet.
You should have access, Emily.
Thank you. Thanks, Renee. As context, I want to walk us through two screens. Can everyone see? Oh, let's see. It says whiteboard, Renee. Stand by. Does everyone see design criteria? Great. Thank you. Start my timer. We generated 100 ideas talking about the logo. You've seen the structure in prior presentations of the identity systems hierarchy that got us to the naming. But these criteria are established. We're going to get a little granular, not too much so, about the logo and the way it works. And all of these were high graded then to 60 candidates, high graded candidates, and were measured against these criteria. And so for your consideration, these are also measures that you can use in measuring the merits of our proposed solution. So this is how we work. There are strategic goals. This had a lot to do with the naming. It must be about education. The second strategic goal we have is that you are collaborative, that it's about supportive, being supportive and service oriented. The next two were invoked in the name, Northwest and service, and so on. The visual sensibility has to convey the following. It must somehow invoke your values and not disregard them. There should be no evidence of disregard of your values. It must feel uplifting, positive. It must feel approachable, be relatable. All this evidence that we gathered, all the interviews, you want to be approachable, relatable. We submit, it must not also be too plain or underwhelming. And it must be timeless and flexible in eras to come. There are functional criteria that are required. The word mark proper, the logo, the symbol, all synonyms. Based on the above criteria, we have settled on a symbol that means ed, and rarely do we get to actually use a word and have it be a word mark and a symbol all at once. And that in itself must not chagrin an English teacher. So one decision that we had to make was it cannot be capital ED, lowercase ed, or unconventional. It must be capital E, lowercase d, and none other. And we certainly explored all those options. Must function as a system, and then the logo has to function in various ways, positive, negative, in black and white, and so on. Sizes large to small and legible in a variety of media. Next up is just also for context, this is for my benefit, our team, in the structure of the screens you're about to see. You saw some signatures prior in the prior presentation about the names and how they would work in arrangements that would convey your structure and the breadth of your offerings. How do we help all levels of your offerings shine? So you'll see that I've conflated admin, what would be Nick's office, or the primary symbol in prior org charts, with the departments and offices that serve you system-wide. So we've made those certain colors for symbolic purposes only. These are not proposed colors. They're probably not far off. We get February in the implementation plan to refine exactly what color these are. And we can say more about that as we go. And those to be differentiated from your education supports, the department's programs and services that directly support instruction. A word about brands, sub-brands, sub-brands. From here forward, I propose that we dispense with that marketing jargon. You have departments, programs, and services. We're returning to articulate language about who you are. So the jargon was useful at the beginning. That was my submission so that we could get organized about how this hierarchy could work. So the words that I'll be using from here forward are departments, programs, and services, and you're welcome to do the same. Without further ado, let's look at some solutions. In the upper left-hand corner of every screen are cues. These are signatures showing the proposed symbol in relationship to your formal name. Note the use of color. In the ADA 508 rules, you cannot use color alone to convey meaning. And I'll speak to that as we go. The other thing to mention is a reminder that the symbol is supposed to help you avoid an acronym or a nickname. Apologies to Dr. Sigler, we can't avoid saying nickname. So it is supposed to mean North Ed because that is the short informal name you have chosen. You'll recognize the color from the system-wide supports. In this case, the logo is in a containing shape. It must work in a containing shape. And in addition to color, we give a second cue for those ADA rules to signal something different structurally. And in this case, it's a square. We recommend elemental shapes to contain the symbol in the system. We also strongly recommend at this time that the presence of your formal name be in every signature, that we use it at all times. We weren't sure in the last round, but we are now. It must be there. And it can be adjacent to things, somehow present, always identifying you. So at the left would be the departments as we go in these screens. At the right would be the programs and services of that department. In this case, at this foundational level, I've used a slogan here because we had room to do so, and you might use a signature like this. The education supports could be indicated with a different enclosing shape. A wonderful thing happened in a prior meeting about color. We had assumed that color would be applied to every major department. Orange, turquoise, green, who gets those colors? And I was a little nervous about that. You know, what if you didn't want orange for your entire department? And through the synergy of our work together, it was proposed that that could perpetuate silos, and that's not one of your values, and it's not where you're going. So I'm using one color tonight to propose the structure to you, but we'll have some fun with color, and it will be for your education supports and your system-wide supports as well. It was a nice moment in a meeting. These are department level signatures. At left, the department. At right, the program or service of that department. We want programs and services at this level to shine. Departments at left, programs and services at right. Another thing that we are duty bound to do is to show this to you in application. So we have the pleasure of making stuff up at this phase to show you hypothetical ways in which this system might be used. It's a part of our proof of concept and part of our recommendation to show you why we think this will work. So the next series of screens at the end of this deck are about applications to everyday objects. In this case, imagine on the back side of these objects your formal name. Always should be adjacent or present somewhere. North Ed coffee cup. It's fun to show t-shirts. In this case, for this identity, for you, we need to build into this system a way for kids, teachers, families to have fun. Lively t-shirts are a great way to go. We could imagine all kinds of swag and ways that programs and services can have fun, some esprit decor. In this case, I intentionally placed the logo on the front. Maybe somebody would say, hey, who's Ed? And the formal name would be on the back. But it also shows a variety of treatments of the symbol. At left, one color. These are all one color print jobs if you were buying t-shirts from a vendor. And you just note the different treatments that we're recommending. And these would be official treatments and only these, for example. The bottom, you can see an embroidery treatment. Literature, what might that look like? How might that feel? It should feel good. Dr. Siglarek just presented an award, a certificate of appreciation. How might it look in that context? How formal can it be? In the lower right corner of this screen, you'll see the radiance. It's my timer, excuse me. Radiance, a proposed also containing shape. What might we do with that? How might we show your unity? And we have lots to explore about color. And this is my concluding screen. I turn the floor back to Dr. Siglarek and happy to take any questions as you wish.
Thank you, Emily, and a huge thank you to Heather Jewell as well, and Heidi Argue, and Tom Mills, and Jennifer Stairs, who really have rolled up their sleeves and worked with Emily and her team in this presentation to the board. So I think I'll turn it over to Joe. I think we're at a point where we're looking for a recommendation for the rebranding symbol as presented, and then maybe we can have some discussion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Siglarek. Is there a motion?
I'll
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I think out of that, I got a motion and a support. The screens are still up, so maybe that's a good idea. So as the question, well, no, Emily, you can leave. Well, if we want, somebody may want to see them. So be ready. Okay, board members, fire away.
So, Emily, I think you made a really good point about when you were showing the shirts. You said if they see the symbol on the front and they don't know what that means, then they look at the back. And you know, I'm guessing that you're using that arrow as north. And when I think of a compass rose and how it is on a map or any other legend that's built, there's always an N on that arrow. So I guess I'm asking, why are we not at least showing the N for north?
The name is Northwest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So then that even brings me even further to, why are we pointing north if we're northwest?
Well, there's a question in there someplace, Emily, I think, right?
Emily, you're on mute.
Let me address it this way. Your formal name is Northwest Education Services. Within systems rules, your nickname might be Northwest Ed. But we preferred North Ed because it's shorter, more memorable, and more likely to be used. So we have this quirky, if you'll forgive the word, situation in which we want to cause a shortened name. I'm going to address this in two parts. So the word northwest, we chose to symbolize the word north so that we would say North Ed. Nobody will really look at this necessarily and say that this means north. That's not the function of the logo, to be that instructive. We want it to be abstract enough. The way that North Ed will actually be applied to this symbol is through your use of it in the vernacular, spoken, because it's not to be printed formally as North Ed. So it's a quirky situation. We designed 100 symbols. We had symbols for Northwest, North. We had ambiguous symbols. This is a caret, C-A-R-E-T symbol that has energy in both directions. So it's vague on purpose. And we wouldn't want to illustrate literally a compass. There are certainly lots of symbols like that, but that's not something that would make it timeless or abstract enough to really be symbolic in what we feel is a timeless way. It's beyond aesthetics. It needs to be vague enough to mean more than one thing. So we didn't want to be literal. A logo cannot be an illustration in our set of criteria. So we looked at compass roses on the wall in my studio are the 60 high grades, and there are compass symbols there. We didn't put the letter N there, but they're unmistakable. So, but they did not pass muster in the other criteria, so they lose to the symbol that meets all the criteria, and this is where we ended up.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I just think it's absolutely wonderful, and I like the simplicity of the symbol, and the lack of making it not so explicit. I think there's a classiness to the simplicity. So, looking at everything, I just think it's fantastic work. I don't have any criticisms at all. The only question I did have is when you go back a couple slides, and you probably have a really good answer for it. Keep going. A couple more. That one. The career, when you look at this, the career tech is blue on the left. So that's kind of the hierarchy goes to the left to the right, right? So you have the sub programs underneath. Mm-hmm. I just wondered why you put the blue in the name of the program and sort of created the career tech to sort of not tie into the upper hierarchy on the left. That was just a color question, really, but.
Say that another way. So, Jason, you're looking at.
Well, I mean, you have career tech on the left here. That's blue, and then when you translate it into the sub kind of brand or sub kind of usage of it, career tech sort of becomes lost in it, and it becomes film and new media. And I just wondered if maybe there's the blue would be career tech, and then you'd have some sort of a sub color of film and new media.
Could be
for the programming, but that was just a question. I thought maybe you had a particular reason for it.
Yeah, no.
But I love everything you've done. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah,
the circles, the shape that you stuck it in. What was the differential between that and the squares in the beginning? Why did you we switched to circles all of a sudden?
Well, it might be lost in translation too. So when we hit February, what we've done here is design a theoretical model.
Oh, okay.
We don't yet know how these signatures will be used. Not really. I mean, this might be a sign on Emily's door. You know, we don't yet know exactly how these signatures will be used, but we had to think it through like a university system, so that we would have thought through the entire structure in a thorough professional way. But the application of color has yet to be decided. There's even a kind of a mistake in my deck here.
Yeah.
And the work of February is to take this hypothetical model and to end up knowing what that Pantone color is, and that it passes 508 contrast rules, that, you know, it has, so that we button down every detail. And that's when we'll be making the final decisions about how to use what could be such a lively color system. The decision we made to not make it structural really opens it up, and we could have some life in it. And the suggestion you made may well be the best thing to do.
I may not even like the thought, but I just was asking if there was thought behind it. But yeah, it's really, really wonderful. I just love that simplicity of that image that you've created with the North Ed. So good job.
Thanks.
I think it's
just like to say
wonderful
that
too. You know what Jason was talking about with the Career Tech Center and then that color. As he was talking, he kind of made a point, which was you bringing the film and new media forward, which is kind of a great. It's awesome because you're seeing what's underneath is now forward, right?
Right. We want it to shine.
Exactly. I mean, it made sense visually as he was talking about it as to why it did stand out, right? I think it's awesome. I'm blown away. And Emily, I'm going to assume too, there's some sort of like a marketing campaign that this steps all out, and we'll see that at the end of all of this too, and how this all gets out into the public and how we can help as well.
Yes, we're working hard with Heather, Heidi, Jennifer, and Tom. They are building spreadsheets, grids. They're looking at every communication vehicle in your system in theory, to whom it goes, who is sending it, and what is its purpose. What will the post-COVID world look like with regard to communication? How can we innovate? We have a rollout trajectory plan. Your team is working very hard alongside the creation of this intellectual property. They're working very hard. So yes, that will be addressed and be very intentional.
Rachel?
Thanks. I was just going to say nice work, Emily. Thanks for all you did in the committee. And it does, I'd have to say, agree with Jason. It feels so fresh. And I think that's exactly what we need. Awesome job.
I can't see the screen. Anyone else have their hand up, Dr. Savary? Renee, can you put me back on the screen or give me the
Yeah, Emily, I think if you can stop sharing, that might.
Sharing?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. Board members, it's marvelous. I agree with all the comments made thus far. Anyone else care to weigh in at this point? If not, we have a motion. We've had some discussion. Is there further discussion? I guess we can call a vote. Dr. Savary?
McKellar?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Berge?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Hank?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Great job, Emily.
Thank you.
Appreciate your effort.
My pleasure.
Really nice.
Item 4, information items, reconfirming the instructional delivery methods consistent with preparedness and response plan. Dr. Swearick, I trust.
Yeah, no change to the plan recommended at this time. I'm pleased to report that we have 94.58% two-way participation and communication as we are required to report. We will post that on our website. I will say that our operations committee of our COVID-19 preparedness and response plan will be reconvening, and in light of the new information with regards to the data that exists within our community, as well as, and more specifically, our staff being able to participate in a vaccination clinic, they will be considering what options moving forward or recommendations they may be able to bring to you around career and technical education. I know Pat met with our local district school principals, and they're very much hopeful that we'll be able to go back face to face with a more robust program when we feel like the operations committee feels it's safe to recommend that to you. So that's all I have on the reconfirmation.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, discussion items, board policies, first read distribution.
Yeah, for the most part, the policies are addressing the education department general administration regulations. And as our CFO would explain to me, that it's more federal rules for grant administration and making sure that we're in compliance. So per our procedures, this is just a board policy first read, and then after 30 days, we'll bring back to you for second reading and adoption.
Very good, thank you. Item 6, updates, Dr. Seglarek.
Yeah, just really 2 quick things. Last Friday, I had an opportunity, thanks to a special invite from the superintendent of Suttons Bay, Superintendent Petz, invited me to speak to and listen to his student leadership team, both at the elementary and high school level. I appreciated that opportunity, and what became abundantly clear to me directly from the students is the desire, the sincere appreciation to try to maintain face-to-face instruction as much as possible. They were describing to me the struggles that they've had when they've had to go remote, and I know that we all feel that, and I'm just so appreciative of the staff and our students for all the mitigation factors that are still going to be necessary throughout the year to ensure that we can continue to operate safely face to face. So, and the other thing, I just have a 1-minute video that I would love to share. Someone had mentioned the collaboration that Brian Matchett had with culinary and different programs, and it's fitting that this is Career Tech Ed Month, and we're celebrating our teachers and our programs. But this cross collaboration and solving community problems is something that our students and staff do at the Career Tech Center all the time. So I'd like to thank Pat for his leadership and all that he's done. But I want to show you this quick little news report on a pretty innovative and cool thing that's going on right now at our tech center.
The coronavirus pandemic has impacted businesses across the state. Specifically, Michigan restaurants have been closed down for indoor dining for the past few months. But to curb that, a local Career Tech Center has come up with a shed prototype for restaurants to use during the pandemic. These pretty nifty single-party sheds run about $500, which solely covers the cost of supplies. This is all in an effort to help the community and small businesses right here in northern Michigan.
This is a temporary outdoor dining facility set up for individual tables, individual parties to dine at. Grown adults can stand up in it comfortably and hopefully enjoy an outdoor dining experience.
Oh, cool.
So isn't that
I'm gonna brush your teeth.
That is definitely cool. Yeah.
So I just think it's great how our students and our faculty really think about community problems and how they come together. There was the construction trades and the culinary, and just super proud to be a part of it.
Absolutely, aren't we all? I mean, it's humbling almost. All right, item 7, board member reports and requests. All right. Dates to remember, February 17th at 3:30. We have a work session. Dr. Seglarek, that's still a go?
It is still a go. It's technically going to be classified as a special meeting, a special session. Really going to highlight the great work of our committees around our strategic plan and our SAIL work. And it is possible, depending on the outcome of the operations committee, safety committee, whether we might ask for a recommendation to adjust the COVID preparedness response plan. So those are really the two major items that we'll be discussing.
Good deal.
Great. Okay. Good meeting tonight. Good to see you all. Everyone's safe, and we'll see you on February the 17th.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Nothing
everyone.
further. We're adjourned. Thanks.